Hello and welcome, fellow motorsports fans. There is still no new racing action taking place, so I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to get a little bit more excited for the upcoming season. So, as you could already tell from the title, I'm going to give you my Formula 2 preview for 2024, including predictions for every single driver pairing. Before we get into it, just quickly outline a few caveats. First of all, the important thing, in case you're not aware, the Formula 2 Championship will get a new car for next season, so this means that predicting the team performances is basically impossible, hence why I will stick to just predicting the strength of the combined driver duos, as opposed to where I actually think the teams will finish with their respective machinery. The other thing is that this means we don't really know how big of a factor experience will be, as it's going to be a new car for everyone, but I still chose to value experience quite highly, so rookies will still be disadvantaged as far as I think, but obviously time will tell if that's actually going to be the case. The third thing is actually ranking the teams one by one is basically impossible, so we are going to be using a tier system. Now, with all of this out of the way, let's get going. In my question mark tier, as the only entry is PHM. I don't really know what the point of this lineup consisting of Josh Mason and Joshua Dirksen really is. I don't think anybody knows, aside from they probably pay really well for that seat. Neither driver really belongs in the F2 series. I think Dirksen is a little bit underrated just based on his Freca performance, since he never really had a good team to work with either. So, I mean, he's a decent driver, I think, but yeah, as I said, I don't really see the point of either of them being an F2. I don't really see a point of predicting who's going to beat the other, as they will be fighting for P19. I think Dirksen will maybe take it, but yeah, this is really a whatever battle. Let's just quickly move on to the next tier. Now, just a little step up from PHM. In our seat warmer category, we have two teams with one driver being significantly out of position in the series, I would say. First of all, High Tech with Amaury Cordeel, who is just, as we all know, just a bit of a waste of space in the Formula 2 Championship. He is partnered with former Mercedes junior Paul Aron, who I think is a decent enough driver, but also stepped up to F2 maybe a little bit too quickly, and is also just, I mean, he's good, but he's not really an F1 prospect. There's a reason why Mercedes dropped him. So yeah, really a whatever kind of team. In a similar fashion, Van Amersfoort Racing has got Rafael Villagomez now as a new driver stepping up from Formula 3. Very similar category to the likes of Cordeel, I would say. There's no real point for the guy to step up. He's more experienced than Dirksen. It's not quite as disgraceful, but he is still not really going to impact the standings, and quite frankly might embarrass himself more than a few times. He's partnered with Enzo Fittipaldi, who has had a bit of a shocking underperformance last year, I would say, but he is a driver who certainly has potential. He's still got his ties to the Red Bull Junior team, so he is still fighting for his F1 dream at the end of the day. And I think he can bounce back. He has shown that he has the talent in the past, but he will need to hit the ground running if he wants to fight for that championship at all, or at the very least, impact the fight properly. In this category, lovingly named First Real Teams, we have the All-American lineup from DAMS with Juan Manuel Correa and Jack Crawford. Now, Crawford I'm not super high on, although he is definitely one of those young and promising drivers, and if we are going to have another American driver in F1 in the near future, it's probably going to be him. I think his year last year was a little bit underwhelming, but at the same time, it was fine. It's just about the best thing I can say for him, I would say. I think he will really need to beat Correa pretty substantially, so I would expect a bit of a one-sided showing here. For Correa, on the other hand, I don't really understand why he's sticking around in F2. Obviously, I can appreciate somebody chasing his dream, you know, but I don't really think it's going anywhere. He should have probably looked for opportunities in sports cars. So yeah, the story for this team for me is really all about how hard can Crawford send Correa back home overseas, and will it be enough to keep the F1 dream alive for him? In a similar category, or in the same tier, we've got the Trident. Admittedly, it's also partly here because the team has been so bad last year that it's like very difficult to rank its returning driver, Roman Stanek. I actually think he's a pretty good driver, but it's just been really difficult for him to show anything last year as the car was just not able to fight for points on a consistent basis. So yeah, that's why they are in this slightly lower tier. His partner actually I do rate quite highly. Richard Verschoor is one of those benchmark drivers in F2. There are some people saying he shouldn't do a 4th season, but honestly I think he is good enough to the point where he's still at least hoping for that miracle championship win. Is it going to happen in a Trident? No, very unlikely, but it's new cars. I mean, if ever there was a chance for an upset title, it's now, so I can understand why he's sticking around, and I really like it just from that perspective of being the proven benchmark F2 driver at the moment and no Nissani. And now for our very deep midfield tier. This was really the one that made me decide that there is no point to try to rank them one by one, as for these three I just could not decide on an order. First of all, we have MP Motorsports with returning driver Dennis Hauger. He's been dropped by the Red Bull Academy program, but I still think he's one of those quality F3 drivers, F2 drivers obviously. He's been incredibly unlucky this year. Yes, he's also maybe not quite had the pace we would have expected from him, especially after seeing what Drugovich could do in the MP the year before. But he is still one of those quality drivers. At worst, I'd put him in that Richard Verschoor category of just being a good benchmark for any rookie to compete against. Now, he's got one of those interesting rookies as his teammate with Franco Colapinto, who's been one of those, I'd say, slightly troubled F3 drivers, just never quite in the car required to actually fight for the title, even though I think he definitely has the skill to fight for a title. I'm really happy he is finally stepping up to Formula 2, and I think he will actually push Hauger quite a bit. Now, maybe not from the get-go. As I said, I am still going to value experience, so I would still predict Hauger to beat him, but I do not think it's going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. On a similar level, we've got the Red Bull Junior duel between Pepe Marti and Isaac Hadja over at Campos. Now, I think this duel will be fire. I think it should be great, especially if we get some lovely team radios to go along with it. We all know Hadja can be a little spicy on the radio. This should be entertaining, if anything. Obviously, Campos maybe not the best team to actually fight for a title or even consistent points for both drivers, so this could make it a little bit awkward. This could definitely be one of those battles where maybe the end results at the end of the year don't quite reflect the pace on track, but obviously that'll all remain to be seen. A prediction here was really difficult. I still rate Hadja quite highly, but he really needs to sort out his mental game. I think he's more than quick enough. But yeah, just he seems to get out of it so quickly if anything starts going wrong in a race. So that's really something that he would have had to fix over the winter. And I think he needs to hit the ground running. Otherwise, Pepe Marti, I think, will catch him pretty quickly and start pushing him. I am going to predict Hadja to win, but as I said, this really just all depends on can he fulfill his own potential. I don't think this is much about Marti at all at this point. He will just have a, you know, judging from his F3, maybe a slightly slower rookie campaign, but I'd expect him to just be solid and prepare for his 2025 campaign. Last in this category, we have the quite interesting combo over at Invictus with F3 champion Gabriel Bortoleto going up against Alpine Junior Kushmaini. Both are interesting drivers in their own right. Very, very different sort of career trajectories, with Kushmaini overperforming massively in this year, surprising everybody. I think he is a quality driver, certainly an exciting prospect. Not quite interesting for F1 teams, I don't think, even though it's great that he's got the Alpine partnership going now. He's not a real contender for the F1 seat, I think we all know this. But he should still be able to challenge Bortoleto quite substantially, I would say. And I would actually expect him to beat him. This is maybe a bit of a spicy prediction, considering Bortoleto is the reigning F3 champion. But I'm also one of those believers that he is a little bit overrated. As in, the title just wasn't all that impressive to me. He won it with consistency, which is obviously great for a young driver. but in those junior campaigns, you really want to see people shine with their pace. Ideally, they can sort out the consistency later on. So, and for Bortoleto, it was really the opposite. His pace was decent compared to the other front runners, but not outstanding by any means. But he was just the most well-rounded driver of this very rough F3 class this year. So yeah, I don't think he's gonna do too great in F2, but maybe he is at least one to really quickly adapt to a new car. That could be a thing. So who knows? It should certainly be an interesting duel, but my money is on Kushmani for this one. And now we are really getting to the interesting bits in our contenders tier. First up, Roden Carlin, which is going to be quite awkward to watch, I would say, as I don't think the car will reflect the quality of the drivers at all, so they might not be fighting for those top positions I'm predicting here whatsoever. Nonetheless, Rita Mumiata in the car immediately propels it up to one of those top positions. Reigning Super Formula champion, just a rapid open wheel driver. Obviously, the aim of his campaign here is a bit weird. We still don't fully know what Toyota's aim is with him in F2. Maybe it's just preparation for a European season in WEC, so maybe he's just there to learn the tracks and everything. Who really knows? Maybe they want to push him to F1 with some weird project, even though I don't think that's the end goal. Either way, he should be one of the top drivers on the grid. I would say like an easy top 5-ish guy on the grid. And then he's paired with Zane Maloney, who is one of the most interesting young guys on the grid, despite his underwhelming year last year. I think he can get bounced back from this, and if Maloney is at all close to the potential he's shown in F3, then this is easily a top 2 or top 3 driver lineup on the grid. The other big one, and a fantastic duo really, is the one from Art. They've got Zach O'Sullivan, the Williams Jr., who's been, you know, I don't rate him quite as highly. As I said, the whole F3 grid this year has been a little bit shaky all around, and then he's been one of the more experienced guys on the grid and still didn't win the championship, so it's not fantastic. But he's clearly got pace. He's like the opposite of Bortoleto in that sense, I would say. He's clearly the quicker guy, in my opinion, but just really struggles to string together a season, it seems. So I wouldn't bet on him at all to do anything against Victor Martins, but I still think he's going to be like a Rookie of the Year contender at least, although we all know who's going to win that, and we'll get to that in a second. Victor Martins, on the other hand, one of the two big championship favourites. In my opinion, I would actually call him the championship favourite. He looked like the more well-rounded guy compared to Ollie Behrman, and is one of the 3 really hot F1 prospects. If we had to pick drivers that will probably maybe make it to F1, he's definitely on that list. So yeah, that was the main reason for the team to be in this category, if not one higher. And there's really only a single team I see beating Art. If you like this sort of content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of it in the future. For our winning team, there was really only one that came to my mind in terms of strongest driver lineup, and it is Prema with Ollie Behrman and Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Now, if you've heard me talk about junior Formula racing at all on this channel, you may already know that I am a massive Andrea Kimi Antonelli fanboy, so full disclosure, I am massively biased here. I think he's a comfortable Rookie of the Year. He should really start pushing Behrman in the second half of the year. I don't see him as a championship favorite necessarily. He is skipping Formula 3, so I think that would just be really unfair to expect no matter how highly I rate him. That just feels like, yeah, just an unrealistic expectation for a 17-year-old really to skip F3 and then win F2 at his first go. The only reason why he's even remotely in that conversation is the new cars. Nonetheless, I do expect him to be the best driver probably by the end of the year, or at the very least it would not surprise me the slightest. So while I don't see him winning the title, I do see him ending up as the best thing to come out of the year, if that makes sense. Now, his teammate Ollie Behrman, Ferrari Jr., also one of those guys that's probably going to step up to F1 very soon if he fulfills his potential this season. I think he looks maybe more talented than his rival Victor Martins, but less well-rounded. So I could see like a costly mistake or two, or maybe the pressure from Antonelli costing Behrman the title. That's why my money is on Martins for the title overall. But yeah, I think Behrman will really make a name for himself this season and probably earn his way to some sort of to some form of F1 seat if an opportunity was to open up for 2025. Now then, what do you think of my predictions? Who's your favorite for next year? And what do we think about Andrea Kimi Antonelli and his chances? Let me know all your thoughts about F2 down in the comments. Otherwise, I'm really glad to say, in case you weren't aware, that we will finally have proper racing in the new year this weekend. So look forward to the Saudi Arabian Formula 4 or to my review of the Saudi Arabian Formula 4 next week. Until then, take care, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all. Bye.